So finding acceptance is what we're talking about tonight. I love this. You know, this gal with the umbrella turned upside down. You know, I mean, I feel like that we're always like trying to be this perfection, and those are the moments that stick out in memory, right? Those moments when we're turned upside down, and, you know, most any time we're struggling, right, it's with ourself. And we so desperately reach, look at me, it's enough, lay down. No, lay down. You know, we're struggling within ourselves. And, you know, I think in our society and in our structure, especially as women, we have been identifying our self-worth outside of ourselves, you know, with our men, you know, standing behind our men, with our families, with our jobs, but it's always outside of ourselves, right? And our self-image, everything. We're looking for someone else to tell us how we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to act, who we're supposed to act like, right? And really, we just desperately want to be seen. The question is, by who and why? So in our struggle for acceptance, which we all have it, right? We all have this piece that we're struggling for. That's the big piece, right? By who and why? Like, why do we want so desperately for this particular group of people or this particular person to see our worth, right? I think often that what we're striving to have here, right? Like we've talked before, that we're always attracting our opposite. So if we're trying to be seen, we're really trying to be seen by ourselves, right? I mean, in the end, that's it. We're really trying to be seen by ourselves, you know? And here's the piece, right? This whole normal thing, this whole normal piece that we struggle so hard to be, normal is average. In what other walk of life ever would we struggle to be average? We don't struggle to be average in our jobs. We don't struggle to be average as mothers. We don't struggle to be average, right? Like, that's not something that we try to attain, but yet this normal thing, you know, society, that's all it is bringing everything down to a below average space, right? You know? Prejudice, judgment, and hate, like, they all stem from fear. Most often I've seen that people that have extreme prejudice, be it sexual orientation, be it skin color, be it whatever, religion, it's so fearful, right? And on one hand, it's almost like they can identify with what it is, and that's what scares them, right? Mm-hmm. You know? Like, I've really noticed this with gay people. Like, the people that are so crazy about that, you can tell they kind of identify with it.
Something they don't want to be honest with themselves about.
Exactly. Because we all have some of that. We all have some of that, right? And the really amazing thing is that, you know, what we in our culture or in our tribe deem abnormal, in other cultures it's revered, right? You know, being gay or multi-gendered or whatever in American Indian culture, it's a blessing. It's called the blessing of the two souls, right? And they're revered. They're like the priestess or priests of their society, right? Like, they're the ones. And here we are, because we're so like in this box, you know, which I think a lot of it is our religious structures, you know, in this box. Anything that tweaks outside, anything that's not like in that line, we deem bad, right?
Well, one of the reasons Native Americans seem to think that's so powerful is because they think all people have a feminine and a masculine side to them. And combined in somebody that is transgender or gay, whatever, they have both sides already incorporated in their body. So
Developed.
They have the power of both.
Yes. They're completely developed. Yes. Yes. And I mean, as we evolve, like, right, like they even talk about like the asexuals, right? Because you feel completely satisfied within yourself, right? You don't need that other person. And it's all a matter of perception, right? When we're doing this struggle and we're thinking that this person that we're trying to be like has it all made, don't open a closet, right? I mean, the people that we're trying to follow and trying to, they all have their demons as well, right? If you sit down and looked at that from a different lens, you would see that they're struggling just the same, right? And most of the time that the ones that we're trying to impress or trying to, become a part of or whatever, trying to be seen by, most often they're struggling just the same. It's just with different things. It's just with different things, right? So this is Wayne Dyer's quote: "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." It's a big one to digest. It's a big one to digest because I think often, even, with prejudice and whatever, it's often the way we're seeing ourselves being perceived too, right? I know that when my kids were little, we had really taught them not to see a difference. People have different colored skins and whatever. Why does that matter? It doesn't matter. We look past that, right? That's kind of how we taught them. And my daughter had this little girl at school that she just was absolutely enamored with, and she happened to be black-skinned. And, we experienced that from the other side. Like, they wouldn't let them play together. They wouldn't let them be together, right? So, what am I trying to say by that? That game plays in every direction. And, when we're looking at our life and we're looking at what's coming, we have to really understand that the lens that we're looking at the world through is what we're living.
Well, the day's prominent news, the police being brutal or black people asking for it, and so much depends on your perspective, and the other thing I think people
and everybody's showing up fearfully.
Is that is only about at the very most 5% of the situation, and yet look how much tension it gets.
Right.
And it's coloring people's attitudes towards it.
Absolutely, it's making it much worse.
I mean, you get bombarded by different statements all the time on the news. You have to be strong in your convictions.
Yeah, because I think it's making it much worse because, the police are seeing the situation as volatile and maybe not even be, right? I mean, there was an incident not too long ago where this little boy was just playing in the park with a play gun, a little plastic squirt gun, and the police just drove up and shot him, because in their mind, he was a threat. So the way we see life is the way we perceive it, right? I mean, what we live.
And I always think, God, would you want to be a policeman right now and have to go out into the world? I mean, they can't help but be fearful. But also the black community has the right to fear police, too, because there is a lot of brutalities in the world.
But it's across the board. Women have a right to be fearful, right? I mean, but if we're walking around fearful, then we're going to attract the ones that we fear. So that's the piece, right? If we're walking around fearful, we're definitely going to attract what we're afraid of, And here's the piece, right? We take back our power one choice at a time. So as we're moving through this game, we have to realize that each time we're feeling disempowered, it's because we're not making our own choices. And maybe we've never had, been in a position to really make any choices. Maybe we've been in a position where somebody has been over the top of us, whether we're allowing it or whether we're choosing it or whatever. Maybe we've been in a position where we haven't been able to make those choices. But as we're moving forward, we really have to understand that, the game is completely ours. What we're seeing around us is what we're attracting. So the only thing we can change is to change ourselves and accept who we are, So how we go through that, right, is who am I? What do I want and why am I here? Those are the 3 big questions to the universe. Who am I? What do I want? And why am I here? I'm working with this book right now that I love, and here's how they put it. They say, I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve. I'm here. Right? That's making declarations to the world. I'm here. I'm present. I know what I want. Let's go. Let's play the game, right? And the game does start getting very clear when you can answer those questions like that. When you do know who you are. You know that you're that 21 grams. Did you know that? Your body weighs 21 grams less after you die. So the real you is 21 grams, right? 21 grams. That 21 gram floats around you. It's not always just in this body, right? It floats around when you're meditating. You're rising out of this body, and that's why you can see above and beyond what is here, this bird's eye view that we choose to live most often. So my best bud, Gandhi, right? Happy is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. That's integrity. I'd like to add, no matter who's in the room. No matter who's in the room, because it's hard for us to know ourselves when you like 3 people living in one body, right? That's what I see in people too. That's a lot of times what I see. And you know what's interesting? I was working with this man. His name's Richard Bartlett. He's a chiropractor. And he would take these images of people. And it was with this special camera, right? He would take these images of people and through the process of integration, right? That's what they would look like. And then they would get more solid and more solid. The more clarity they had. Yeah. It's exactly what they look like. You could hardly even see their faces. It was just constant movement. And I see that with people a lot. That's, And that's the thing, right? If you don't know, it's almost like 3 people being in one body. If you've got part of you's thinking one thing, part of you's saying one thing, and part of you's doing one thing, that's like 3 people. So if you don't know which one's going to show up and be dominant in any given situation, no one else does either. So that means that the ground for the people around you and for the people you love is always moving. You're very unpredictable, very undependable. We don't think of ourselves like that, right? And a lot of times if we're saying one thing, doing another, and thinking another, then we're in that nice space. Nice is a lie 95% of the time, right? Kindness comes from your heart. You don't usually think about it. You don't usually have a plan around it. You don't usually, even more often than not, you don't even give it any due, right? You just do it and walk on. It's almost like you're sprinkling fairy dust when you're just giving kindness, right? You don't feel the need to go around and tell everyone. When you do something nice, you have the need to tell people. Have you ever noticed that? You have the need to tell people. You need to pat yourself on the back and go, I did this nice thing for this person, right? Here's one piece I always say about nice. If we're showing up in that space, it's a very egoic space. Even if you're trying to help someone or do something for someone, if you walk on by, the next person may be all in. Right? The next person may be all in. And maybe actually give this person what they really need, not just the icing. They may be walking in with the cake. right? While we're walking in with icing, just smearing it over the top, right? I know that for myself, I remember this one specific incident when that was a light bulb that went off in my head. My kids were little, my business was, bursting at the seams. It was Christmas. I'm an artist too, right? Sally knows that. So our priest asked me to design the nativity from scratch. So I found these gorgeous green, greenware statues that I painted. They were like this tall. So I did the whole nativity scene, thinking, all right, that I can do while the kids are asleep, blah, blah, blah. Then he asked me to actually decorate the entire church on top of that. I should have said no, because I walked in like a drill sergeant. I'm like, I have this amount of time. It's Christmas in a salon. Hello. And this was back in the day where people were like getting their hair done, for Christmas Eve and, whatever. And I walked in there and I was not a kind person. It was beautiful, but did it have the right energy? It was actually more inviting the next year when I said no. My work was still there. All the stuff I created, because I created both, you know what I mean? So that was all still there, but the people that actually went in and instilled it the next year did it with love. I did it with, very different space. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to share is that oftentimes we jump in and think, oh my God, I need to help these people. And truly, they'd be better off if you didn't. The next person. So the question I always throw to the universe, anytime I see someone in need, is this mine to affect? Is this mine to affect? Because if it is, I shouldn't feel sacrifice. I shouldn't feel lack or depleted from doing that if it's my destiny to do it. Right? And we live because we so need to be seen, that we're always like pushing, right? And doing all this stuff with this energy of lack. It doesn't feel good to the people you're doing it for. I mean, you know that. You've had people offer to help you and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish they wouldn't have. By the end of the day, you're like, I wish they wouldn't have. I wish I would have just done this by myself, because this ended up being a stressful thing when it may not have been, right? Don't you love her dress? So here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to integrate those opposites. The idea of good and bad, right and wrong, right and left, blah, blah, blah. God created everything here. Everything here. We couldn't see the light if it weren't for the dark. We couldn't see it. Just think about living in Alaska with the sun shining every day. Would you wake up hating the sun? You would. You'd wake up just hating it, going,
I wonder how people in Alaska live in environments they do.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. But that's what we always are thinking we're striving for, is this peaceful life with no blips and blah, blah, blah. Well, we wouldn't be able to appreciate it, We all know people that are financially completely stable, and they live like poor people, right? They live worrying every second about their money, right? So the whole opposite thing is a big piece when you think that, I guess where this pulls me. Say my father. I always had this in my head that he was, there was this dual piece in him, right? There was this love that was as big as Texas, and this meanness that was as big as Alaska, right? So there was this all encased in this one body, right? So you loved him and hated him all at the same time. And what I realized as I'm healing from all that situation, is that I wouldn't be me and I wouldn't be present for what my purpose is if I hadn't had those experiences, because I wouldn't be able to see people's pain, right? Because we can only see in others what we know. So you've talked to people, right, about your pain or about your situations, you know, you with your MS, where people are like, and comparing it to a toenail, right? Right? I know, I get it. You know, same way, you know, with my abuse, and it'd be like, yeah, my dad got after me for not eating my peas. You're like, okay, different space, but fair enough, because we can only reach as far. I read this Hindu or Buddhist piece, and they were like, you know, our compassion is only as deep as our well of pain. Right? So if we're living in this pond that we're always striving for, we can't touch anyone. We can't touch anyone. You can't feel them. You can't know what they're living, right? If you're swimming around in a pond, right? Another piece, it's the integration of spirit. We've lived in a paradigm where life was here, faith was here, and they were completely separate things. And this didn't affect our lives very much because it was all ideas. And as we're moving through this, it's very much about making these concepts a reality, working reality in our lives. And spirit plays, right? Spirit plays with us. And if we're over here and it's just ideas and not affecting anything in our lives, we haven't touched it yet. Because spirit plays. Spirit isn't work. Spirit isn't struggle. Spirit isn't suffering. Spirit plays. So this normal we're striving to have, you know, defies our uniqueness. It negates anything that makes you special. So interesting that that's where we're really trying to get, right? In our attempt to mold ourselves, we lose what makes us us. So our uniqueness, our gifts, our talents don't always fall into the world's idea of career. I think that's shifting and changing, right? But it doesn't always fall into that. Often our gifts come from what we've experienced, not what we have learned in books, right? It comes from what we have experienced. And that's what we can bring to the world. We can bring to the world what it feels like and how to live successfully with MS and raise your kids and not let that be what defines your life, right? Just like with me, the abuse, that's not what defines my life, but it is what brings my passion to the world, right? Right?
Right.
You know?
I've known Cherie for a very long time.
Yeah, very long time.
I was thinking about your story. Your pain is now fueling the fire for your new passions.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you know, I'm beginning to recognize that I too, like my husband, am an artist. We met at Kansas City Art Institute, and that it's time for me to reawaken that spirit in me. That it's something that brings me great joy. Yeah.
And a special place in your heart with those memories too, I guess.
Well, yes, yes.
To have that's so powerful. To have been able to share that.
Well, when we're creating, we're connected to spirit.
The other day when Cherie was over my house, we were doing some spirit work in it, and almost all the pictures I have up, or the artwork I have up, I can remember little stories about them all the time. This happened, this happened, this happened. So in that point, he's very much still alive, and I have had to rethink what alive means.
Yeah, because it's almost like they're just not dreaming this dream now. That's what it is. It's like they're just not dreaming this dream anymore. They've moved on to a different dream. It's not like they're not present and they're not around. It's just like what I have experienced. It's very much like this. It's just, moving the curtain slightly and you can see what's behind it, right? So he was very much there the other day, very present. Yeah.
I told Cherie, and I still don't know if I really believe this inside of me. I looked at it. I know it. I know I'm not crazy, but I just don't know where to put it in my head. I had put out a fresh towel in my bathroom, and it was all clean and straight and everything. And when I went into the bathroom, this towel looked like somebody had washed their hands and then dried their hands on the towel. All wrinkly and crumply like a towel could be. And sat there for the longest time, and I knew Cherie hadn't gone into my bathroom, and I didn't do that. And so I said, well, I guess it's Jim trying to tell me, yeah, he's really here, but I don't know quite what to think of that yet. I mean,
he's powerful.
This is like, I know what I saw, but
I tried to walk
there's
into.
There's got to be a more normal explanation, but I can't think of one.
But why do we want to bring everything down to that space, though?
Why can't I just, something like that. Why can't you just accept it as truth?
Because we've learned to, explain away our miracles, which is so sad, really, when you think about that.
I remember something from biology class that there's some sort of evolutionary reason why our brains don't assimilate
the paranormal.
Like just out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
That we would want to explain away anything. I can't remember now where I saw something like that.
Huh.
There's some very logical
scientific brain.
Takes over for us.
Yeah, so down into the the fight flight.
Yeah.
Like the primal piece, or of course they believed in miracles back then. Like everybody was doing miracles back then, right?
Certainly much more open to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, he was very there. He wouldn't even let me walk into his studio. I tried to go in. It's like, boom. Like, I'm not walking down there right now.
He didn't let very many people in the studio, period. And even he had a little bell. Part of it was that he got so intense in his art that when I'd walk in, he'd get scared. So that's why he put the bell up there. But sometimes he would say, just go away. Well, and again, it wasn't trying to be rude. He just wanted to be present in his world without interruptions.
Oh, yeah. There wasn't any, Sally knows, but there wasn't any, danger or anger, or it was just like, nope. I tried to go down there 2 or 3 times. I'm like, nope, he was not going to let me down there. Not today.
We're going to try next Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go downstairs with you. Say, it's okay, Jimmy. You don't have to be afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. So, changing you changes everything. And, this whole acceptance piece, that's very apropos, right? I mean, we can't do anything about this. We're always trying to change our circumstance. We're trying to change the way people behave, or we're trying to change the way they see us. So the only thing we can do is shore up who we are and have absolute clarity around who we are and why we're here. Once we do, the world around us starts shifting. And it starts really quickly. Happens really quickly. And life can start. Until then, we're just in this slumber. That's what I always like to call it. It's like this slumber. And, it's kind of that waking up gently. Sometimes we wake up and we fall back asleep again, and then we wake up, and we have these epiphanies, and then we doze back off again. We have another one, and pretty soon the times that we're awake is longer than when we're not. Anyway, that's my spiel for tonight.